other, and they say, you know what? We've had enough. What we need to do is we need to get together and revolt against Rome and basically say, Rome, we're not going to take this anymore. You're going to stop charging us all these high taxes. Oh, man, it would make a big, big furor out in the streets. And what Rome did in response is Rome automatically had to stop the revolt and stop the rebellion. And that meant that you brought out the soldiers and the weaponry and the artillery and the horses and the food for horses and the soldiers, and they would stop the revolt. And how many of you know that gets expensive when you got to form an army just like that? And so the next month, guess what happened? When the tax collector came to your door because you started the revolt, and last month you paid 8 denarii, you say, okay, here's your 8 denarii, leave me alone. And the tax collector would say, no, hold on, no, time out. See, it would have been still 8 denarii, but then you guys had to do that revolt. And we had to bring out, all of the stuff to stop your revolt, and that cost us money. And hey, it's not our fault. We didn't do that. You guys did, so now you're going to pay for it. And so instead of 8 denarii, now it's 12 denarii, 13 denarii. What? 13 denarii? That is absolutely terrible. We're not going to stand for it. We are going to revolt. Ugh. And so you had the proverbial cat chasing its tail, and this kept going on and on and on. And so by the time of this engraving, the time period that it suggests, it's about the year 132. And the Israelites have had enough, and they are praying up a storm. And the reason that they're praying up a storm is because they have always wanted the Messiah to come. Well, when you read about Jesus and his ministry, you hear people from time to time saying, wow, could this be the son of David? That was the term for the Messiah. Everybody was expecting the Messiah to come. And people only ask for the Messiah to come the most when things are at their worst. And you know what? We still do that today. I got to tell you, and I think we may have done this in the past when things are not going well, and we as Christians have a tendency to do this. This is not going well, and this is not good, and things are in a furor. Lord Jesus, come now. You notice like we only do that when things are going bad. We never do that when things are going great. It's like, God, this is wonderful and gorgeous day. I have a great family and children and grandchildren, and life is just so good. Come, Lord Jesus, come now. Only when things are going bad. And so they want a Messiah bad, because by this time they've had it with Rome. And they're asking for the Messiah to come because they know that in the Bible, in Isaiah 2, by the way, just FYI, it says that when the Messiah comes, swords will be beaten into plowshares. Nation will not war against nation anymore. Why? Because Messiah is going to come and he's going to destroy the enemy. So in 132, man, when they're shelling out so much money in taxes that they don't even have enough money to feed themselves, you bet they're asking for the Messiah to come. Messiah, please come now. Why? Because you want to see your Messiah and have a spiritual relationship with him? No, because you can't afford the taxes. Just being honest, guys, that was their motivation. And so they're asking for the Messiah to come, and they are like on the lookout for anybody and everybody who just might even be, possibly, the Messiah. And at one point, they find the guy. His name was in Shimon Bar Kokhba in the Hebrew. In the English, he would be referred to as Simon, the son of a star. Everybody got really excited because in your Bibles in the book of Numbers, in Numbers chapter 24, verse 17, it's a prophecy of a Messiah to come. Moses says, I see him, but not now. He's far off, but soon he will be near. A star will come out of Jacob. And they're thinking, wait, Messiah, star, Simon Bar Kokhba, son of a star. That's good enough for us. He must be the guy. Our Messiah is here. And so they say, Simon, we're going to give you an army. We're going to send you into war. You're the Messiah. Don't worry about it. God will give you victory. Go destroy Rome. Go get him. And he goes to get him, and he loses. Big time. And when he lost, Rome said, they said, you know what we're going to do to you Israelites because you actually declared war on us? You had the audacity to do that. No, we're not going to raise taxes. That's not good enough for you. We're going to do something far worse. We are going to rename your land. It's not going to be called Israel anymore. We're going to give it a new name. It's the Roman word Palestina. You know why they chose that word? Because the Roman word Palestina actually in English means Philistine. Rome thought what greater insult against the Israelites in Israel to rename their land after their arch enemy, the Philistines. That's where the term Palestine comes from. It has no connection to any supposed land called Palestine, and it has no connection to any supposed group called Palestinians. Now you know the history. But there's a little bit more. Next slide. This. I don't know why more people don't know this. I don't know why this isn't posted all over social media. Because this, for some reason, they don't teach you in the Ivy League schools because it doesn't agree with their agenda. But here's the truth. Let me tell you a little bit about this guy. His name was Zahir Hussein. He was a member of the Palestine Liberation Organization, or the PLO, kind of an early terrorist group. He identified as a Palestinian. Look, if you're a member of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, it probably helps for you to be a Palestinian. In 1977, he agreed to do a newspaper interview with a Dutch newspaper called Trouw. In English, that word means the sentinel, the calling. He was asked by the newspaper reporter, really savvy guy, he said, Mr. Hussein, I don't understand. You guys call yourselves Palestinians, and you say that you are from ancient times. But if you've been around for thousands and thousands of years, how come nobody ever heard of you until 1964? Great question, isn't it? And to his credit, Zahir Hussein gave him a great and honest answer. It ain't me, guys. Listen to their team and what they said. Quote, the Palestinian people does not exist. I want you to absorb that for a minute. And the reason that I want you to absorb that is because last March, Israel's foreign minister, a guy named Bernard Smotrich, actually was in Paris speaking to a Jewish organization. And when he was speaking, he got up behind the pulpit and he said, I just want to let you know the Palestinian people do not exist. And the whole world and all of the woke culture freaked out. How could you say anything like that? That is terrible. Of course you say that. You're Jewish. Excuse me, they had it first. Let me continue. The creation, he said, Hussein said, of a Palestinian state is only a means for continuing our struggle against Israel, for Arab unity. Only for political and tactical reasons do we even speak today about the existence of a Palestinian people. Arab national interests demand that we propose or suggest the existence of a distinct Palestinian people to oppose Zionism, or the desire of a Jewish person to have a land of their own, just like anyone's desire to have their own land. Do you understand, what is this, 53 years ago or so, I'm not even doing the math right now, that you had a Palestinian who basically freely told the world, look, we made the whole thing up. It's a fairy tale. It's a fable. It's a hoax. It's not real. And yet here we are all these years later and people are still believing the lie? Come on. But, okay, Rabbi Jack, you found one voice. But that's only one voice. I got a couple more for you. And they're all from their team. Take a look at the next slide. The guy on the top, his name was Aouni Bey Abdul Hadi, a politician for the Arabs in 1937. Listen to what he said. He said, there is no such country as Palestine. Wow, how about that? And here's his second quote. Palestine is a term the Jews invented? No, sorry, it wasn't us. It was the Romans. You need to read your history, but well, never mind. Second guy, Philip Hitti, an Arab historian from 1947. There's no such thing as Palestine. And listen to this guy on the bottom. I look at this and I scratch my head. This guy, his name was Ahmed Shukiri. He was the first chairman of the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization. In 1956, he said, Palestine is nothing but southern Syria. Oh my gosh. Syria? Would somebody please tell Hamas and Hezbollah that they've been attacking the wrong country for more than a year? Next slide. And take a look at the one on the bottom, because here's the revision of that slide, but I added one. See the guy on the bottom? Jordan's King Hussein, who in 1981 said, the truth is that Palestine is the nation of Jordan. And Jordan is Palestine, and he's absolutely right. Here's a little bit of the background. Those who refer to themselves as Palestinians today, guys, they're actually Jordanian. Why do you think the Palestinian flag is exactly the same look as the Jordan flag, except without the star in the middle? Jordan kicked those Palestinians out because they were too much of a pain in the neck and wanted to bring about evil and terrorism. So did those Palestinians get kicked out? Not out of Israel, out of Jordan, their own Arab country, who didn't want them then and doesn't want them still now. Next slide. Next claim, a two-state solution would bring about peace. A state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel. Look, if you just have these two states side by side, then they wouldn't be fighting and everybody would live together in peace and it would be great. Guess what? We've gone this road before. For like more than 100 years, every time Israel's agreed to a two-state solution, she's been attacked by the Arabs. Israel has said yes, the Arabs had said no, and the Arabs have attacked. Let me show you some history. Next slide. The year was 1917. And the Middle East at this time, that land over there, which is actually Israel, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, was basically under the domination of the Ottoman Turks. And they had been there for about 400 years, since like around 1617, actually 1517, so now it's 1917. So 400 years, that land was under the authority of the Turkish. And by the end of World War II, you know, Great Britain all of a sudden took interest in that land, saying, yeah, you know, we kind of like to have some authority and control. You're probably wondering, what in the world would Great Britain want with a whole bunch of land, which at that time was dust and sand? There was nothing there. You wouldn't want it. Why did Great Britain want it? Because Great Britain didn't care what was above the ground. Great Britain knew what was below the ground. Three-letter word, everybody say it. You got it. Great Britain said, man, if we can kick out those Ottoman Turks and we can have authority over the land, then we can have control of the oil, make us a lot of money. But Great Britain knew that they couldn't do it alone. So Great Britain said to the Jews in the area, they said, look, you Jews want your own homeland, yeah? And we said, yeah. Okay, I'll tell you what. If you Jews help us kick out the Ottoman Turks, when they get kicked out, we'll give you some land out there. We'll give you your own state, your own nation, your own country. And Great Britain made the same deal with the Arabs. They said, you Arabs would like some of that land to call your own, right? And they said, yeah. They said, well, hey, the Jews are already helping us out. They're getting a piece of land. You want to help us out? We'll give you land too. And the Arabs said, we're in. And so both of them helped out Great Britain. And guess what? Great Britain kicked out the Ottoman Turks. And then Great Britain, it was time for Great Britain to pay up. So Great Britain said, hey, you Jews, see that narrow strip of land there just to the right of the Mediterranean Sea? That's yours. And went, ah. Even though, by the way, the Bible gave it to us like thousands of years before. But it was nice, and, a nice gesture from Great Britain. We said, thanks for that. And then Great Britain said to the Arabs, they said, listen, you Arabs, you're going to love this deal. Because, that we gave some land to the Jews, but you Arabs are going to love this deal even more because you're not only getting a land that size, but the land area we're giving you is about 3.5 times the size of what we gave them. Going to give you all of Jordan, going to give you all of Syria, going to give you all of Lebanon too. So you guys good with that? And the Arabs said no. And the British couldn't figure it out. They said, wait a minute, we're giving you 3 times as much as we gave to the Jews. You should be happy. How come you're not? We don't get it. And the Arabs said, let me tell you why we're not happy. We're not happy because we believe that land you gave to the Jews belongs to us too. And we're not going to be satisfied until you give us that as well. Well, what are we going to give to the Jews? And the Arabs replied, oh, I don't know, send them to another country. Iceland is really nice this time of year. So Great Britain said, look, this is fair, a deal is a deal. And so for the next 30 years, the Arabs basically said, well, if we can't do this legally, we're going to blow up our way in. We're going to start going to this area where the Jews are. We're going to start intimidating them, robbing them, torturing them, killing them. And this went on for 30 years, back and forth. And Great Britain, after a while, couldn't take it anymore because each week the Jews would complain, the Arabs were driving us nuts, and the Arabs would say, hey, Great Britain, don't put any pressure on us because if you do, you're not going to get our oil. And so after 30 years, Great Britain said, you know, this is a losing proposition. We just wanted to come in for oil. We're tired of babysitting both sides. So 30 years later, Great Britain said, that's it, we're out, we can't take it anymore. But they said, don't worry, you Jews, Israel, don't worry, it's going to be okay. Because we're going to bring in another organization in our place, and they're going to bring about peace with you guys and the Arabs. You're going to have a two-state solution. By the way, that first attempt was also called the two-state solution. You following me? 30 years later, Israel, don't worry, we're going to have another shot at a two-state solution. And the organization that will be coming in will help you broker it, and everybody will be happy because they're so fair. You may have heard of this organization. They're called the United Nations. So, next slide. Here we are in 1947, and the UN comes in, and the UN basically says to the Jews, they say, okay, look, here's the deal. You know, you Jews were given that narrow strip of land, but you've been attacked ever since. So you got one of two choices. Hold on to the land and continue to get attacked, or if you just give away a little bit more of your land to those Arabs, then everything will be great, and that will bring about peace, because they just want a little bit more, and if you do that, everything will be terrific. And Israel said yes. And so Israel gave away some more land. And the following day, the Arabs attacked and tried to blow them to smithereens once again. And people were walking around scratching their heads saying, I can't figure it out. The UN said, give them a little bit of land. We gave it to them. It was supposed to work. Why didn't it work? Easy. We have a saying in the Middle East, and it equally applies here. You don't get the bully to go away if you keep giving him your lunch money. But guess what you had here, everybody? A second shot at a two-state solution. It didn't work in 1917. It didn't work in 1947. Israel said yes. The Arabs said no. The Arabs started attacking Israel. That's how this works. Did we learn from history? No. Because some close to 60 years later, next slide, we had another attempt at a two-state solution. Israel's prime minister at the time was a gentleman by the name of Ariel Sharon. And in the early 2000s, we had what was called and there were several of them, an intifada. An intifada is basically a term where Palestinian terrorists cross borders, come into Israel, and just, arbitrarily shoot and kill people, innocent people. And it was getting really bad. This is when you were hearing reports of people sitting in coffee cafes in Tel Aviv and innocent people getting blown up or buses getting blown up, suicide bombers and in vests blowing themselves up, killing 40, 50 people on the streets of Haifa in the process. It was crazy. And people were pressuring Israel's Prime Minister Ariel Sharon saying, do something. And one day Ariel Sharon in 2005 got on the radio and he said, okay, I got a great idea. He said, Great Britain failed, the United Nations failed, but I know what will work. And what will work is if we, Israel, get a load of this. You ready for this crazy, original, innovative idea that nobody's ever heard of before? He said, what will work is if we, get the drum roll, if we give the Palestinians some of our land, because that's always a surefire way to solve this thing. Yeah. Can you believe that they actually did this a third time? And so in 2005, let me show you what you're looking at. You are looking at an Israeli mother and her daughter who were living in the Gaza Strip. Because back then, my friends, the Gaza Strip was all Israel. And not just because God said so in Genesis 15:18, but because some years prior, Israel had fought what was called the Six-Day War and regained control of this land from Egypt. It always did belong to Israel. And so in 2005, you had like 10, 15, 20,000 Israelis living in the Gaza Strip on Israeli land. And Ariel Sharon basically told them one day, he said, okay, look, we got to bring about peace, and the only way to do it is for all of you Israelis who are living in the Gaza Strip, you got to leave. You got to get kicked out. I want you to just rest on that thought for a minute. Someone comes to your house, police officers in this case, and by the way, these police women are not happy because they're escorting a woman and her daughter out of the Gaza Strip, but the following day they got to go out too because they live there as well. But I want you to picture this possibly happening to you. You're living in your house, and everything has been great. raising family there. Children, the mortgage is paid off, it's your land. Your children go to this school, you go to this job, you've got a wonderful routine. You come to your home at the end of the day, and here's what you do. My home is my sanctuary. Now I can rest, and all is good. And then one day, everything changes. Somebody comes to your door, knocks on the door, and says, I'm sorry, you got to get out. Where am I going? Well, we don't know, but we'll find a place for you somewhere, but this is not your home anymore. It's not your land anymore. Your job is not your job. Your kid's school is not their school anymore, and you're not going to be bringing in money anymore from work because you no longer have work. But don't worry, we'll figure something out. How would you feel if somebody did that to you, especially when you didn't do anything wrong? That's what happened to at least 10,000 people in the Gaza Strip who didn't do anything wrong. All they wanted to do was live. But the Israeli government said, look, if this is what we have to do, if this is the sacrifice we have to make to finally have peace so that they won't bomb us up, blow us up anymore, then we'll do it. So guess what? We got out so that the Palestinians could get in. We got out. And when we got out, on our next slide, we said, what in the world are we going to do about this? Because in the Gaza Strip at this time, we had thriving greenhouse businesses. Israel is one of the world's largest exporter of flowers, and this was like a $500 million business for the Gaza Strip, brought in a lot of money. We said, well, what are we going to do? Maybe we can take this with us. And they said, let's leave it here for the Palestinians coming in. Let's just leave it for them. And not only will we give them the land, but when they come into the land, they're going to need money immediately coming in. This is bringing in money. Here's immediate money for you. Here's a blessing. It's a gift from us. Live here. The Gaza Strip, you'll love it. It's gorgeous. Part of it is right on the Mediterranean Sea. Make it gorgeous. Make it a beautiful Riviera. Prosper and live with us, and let's have a two-state solution. So we got out. And we left them in the greenhouses. And the very next day, Palestinians came in, and they saw those greenhouses. And here's what they did with them. Boom. And the media freaked out. The media and the TV networks basically said, okay, we don't get this. We can't figure that out. And they said to the Palestinians, you just got handed free money from the Israelis. What are you doing? Why would you destroy that? The Palestinians said 3 reasons. Number 1, we don't want anything from those expletive Jews. Number 2, we don't need money. Our brother and sister Arab countries are loaded with money from oil. They're sending us millions and billions of dollars. We don't care about the money. And they said, here's another reason we got rid of the greenhouses, those Palestinians said. We got rid of the greenhouses because they were taking up space on the land. We don't want that business. We wanted to use that land. We're going to use that land for what we feel will be a much more profitable and productive business. Okay? Something better. Let me show you the business that they put in its place. Next slide. And there it is. And Hamas has been attacking Israel for the 17, nearly 18 years ever since. All these attempts to make what's called a two-state solution, and Israel agreed every single time, and the Arabs didn't, and each and every time the Arabs attacked Israel back even harder. So my friends, it's unconscionable to me that in the past year, I've heard politicians all over the world, and people like Justin Trudeau in Canada, and Emmanuel Macron in France, and others, even in the Biden administration, saying, there is a way to resolve this. We can have a two-state solution, and that will bring about peace. Does no one learn from history at all? Next slide, and next claim. Israel is guilty of genocide, intentionally trying to kill innocent people. Here's the facts. The fact of the matter is that Israel tries to save civilian lives while Hamas sends civilians to their deaths. I don't want you to believe me. Let me show you the evidence. Next slide. The day after Hamas attacked Israel, Israel said, we got to go after the bad guy, because Hamas was living in the Gaza Strip, and so were innocent Palestinians. Now, the bad guys are living in an area, and the good guys are living in an area. And normally it would be easy to differentiate between the two. You can't do that in the Gaza Strip. Why? Because it's tiny. It's about 141 square miles, 25 miles long, 6 miles wide, but then put nearly 3 million people in there. Oh man, that's dense. That means the good guys are living right with the bad guys. There's no way to distinguish. And so Israel said, how do we get the bad guys and go after them and defend ourselves and not kill innocent civilians? So here's what Israel did. Israel made an announcement and basically said, what we're going to do is we're going to fly over the northern part of the Gaza Strip, because that's where Hamas had its headquarters. And Israel dropped thousands and thousands and thousands of these leaflets from planes directed toward the civilians who were living there. These leaflets basically said, listen, if you are a civilian and you're not part of Hamas, good. Now separate yourself from them even more, because you're in Hamas territory. We're going to be attacking them tomorrow, and we want to make sure that they get hurt and you don't. Because if we were truly intent on going after you and committing genocide, we wouldn't be dropping flyers. So get out. And the next day, Israel attacked. And when the smoke cleared, supposedly there were Palestinian civilian casualties, especially women and children. And Israel got blamed. And why did this happen? Israel told the Palestinian civilians to get out. They did get out, guys. But when they got out of their homes and they went on the streets, you had Hamas militants holding guns to them and saying, you get right back there in your houses and you sacrifice yourselves. Because we, Hamas, are smart enough to have played this propaganda game for so long that when you die, the world is going to blame it on Israel, and that's exactly what they want. And it's exactly what we want. You are a pawn. Thanks for playing. Your life is over. Now help the cause. And that's exactly what happened. And guys, again, Hamas even said, ignore the leaflets they put in your places. We will die and not leave. But maybe that's not enough to convince you. So perhaps the next slide will. And let me tell you a little bit about these two guys. The guy on the left, his name is Fatih Hamid. The guy on the right, Sami Abu Zuri. They're Hamas operatives. And they have gone frequently on what's called Al-Aqsa TV, Palestinian television. And they have proclaimed with glee to the world that they commit genocide against their own people. Listen to their own words. For Palestinians, death has become an industry. The elderly are great at this, and so are the kids. This is why, yes, we have formed human shields of the women and the children. They admit it. We call upon them to sacrifice themselves. We say to Israel, the Zionist enemy, as you desire life, we desire death. So here you have, for all the world to see, Israel's trying to save innocent lives. Hamas is saying, we want innocent Palestinians to die and we're going to kill them. And yet, here's the result. Next slide. Come on. This is crazy. But this is because people will